David, wow, what a difference. What a difference. This is just outstanding. The direction you're taking this is just far, far superior to where we've been. Okay, I'm going to go through each page and I'm going to give you my recommendations. Okay, now the first thing I notice is can we take this guy right here and just align it? Let me Command R. Just draw a guide right there. And can we just align that to keep the type aligned? Reykjavik is fine, but the logo is fine. But I still think there's too much space between the mark itself and the word mark. So it's almost creating two different categories of visual element as opposed to one. The grouping here is good. That's definitely one group. Okay, but these two almost look like they're not associated by the distance between them. Also, if you take a look down here, you're in a no print zone. The rings are right on the edge of the page. That would most certainly violate Olympic Committee rules for the placement of the rings. Let's go to look at your spreads. Now I'm going to back down off this a little bit. Really good job. Really good job. I mean, the pages are so much more inviting and so much more simple to understand and to really, they're more, just so much more inviting. It's a couple of recommendations. The type color for the headlines, can we change that? Maybe pull something out of here, green, a dark green or something. The black is a little too stark. Black's fine for the body copy, but I think the headlines could use a little something. You've got a couple of, these are called widows, and typically a paragraph there's not really a whole lot of application for a one-sentence paragraph. This is a good example. Reykjavik, Iceland fulfills these requirements. That should be placed right up here at the end of that paragraph. You don't need a new paragraph for that. It's a typographic error, plus it doesn't make sense that it stands on its own. It's continuing the thought that's created here. So, I would remove the captions from your images. I really would. You don't need them. I mean, you're describing everything in here. You don't need captions here. It's just adding things that you don't need. We want these people bored. I would remove those too. That's just really confusing. Remove the captions. Now, I want to mention something. Now, I was talking before about your images being so large, and the reason I was saying they were so large is because you were on 8.5 by 11, and I'm sorry, and some of the images 8.5 by 11, and some of the images were consuming good portions of your page. Now, the more I thought about that, I thought that was maybe a misleading comment because you can use large images, and as a matter of fact, one large, well-placed image is far superior to several smaller images. So what I would recommend, this is a great image right here. Can we take that image and maybe just fit it into the grid somehow? Keep that image there, and that'd be great. So you can remove one image, eliminating one visual stop. So this would be actually 3 visual stops as opposed to 4. I'm counting the type as 1 because it's proximity. It's done pretty well. But I do, now that I look at it, I think this can be a little closer. I think the headline can be a little closer to the body copy because right now the distance is such that they could possibly be mistaken for things that are unrelated. This page here again, well placed image. This image right here of the Olympic spectators, sure, right there. Then maybe another image over there, fitting the grid. Okay. Site research, I think this is a good way to introduce your new sections. Culture, I think there's too many images here as well. Again, you can place larger, well-placed, well-chosen images will say a lot more than several smaller images. This is a widow. I'm sorry, this is an orphan. I'm sorry, technically this is a widow. They're interchangeable anymore, orphan, widow. Basically what you don't want is a word at the end of a paragraph sitting on a line by itself, and you never want another line sitting by itself. Okay, they're interchangeable. You'll hear some people call them orphans, you'll hear some people call them widows, but at the very least, that when somebody says, hey, you got a widow at the end of your paragraph, that's what they're referring to. You don't want words sitting on a line alone. Okay, site research, this is good. Again, try to vary the size of your images. Again, I just think that something, maybe even a larger image here, and then call it a day. You don't even, just varying the white space that you're showing. Key players, you don't have to show every one of these. I think it's just cluttered. Leave these two. Leave these two, or remove this here. Since these are the same sign, leave those here. That can be removed, that can be removed. You'll be eliminating the number of visual stops on the page considerably from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1, 2, since those will be located in good proximity. This page is a little, this causes a problem. And the reason being is because I've got your presentation viewed in show cover page in 2-page view. I got 2-page view. So what we see is the way it would be printed. There's your cover, and then we have our spreads over here. But it makes sense to introduce new sections on the left-hand side of a spread, right? It doesn't really make sense to introduce a new section on the right-hand side of a spread, because then a viewer would have to turn the page to get to design development. So for that reason, I would recommend that you do something here. Somehow, let's take culture, experience, key players, infrastructure, and add another page to that. I'm not sure how you're going to do it. Add another page from your phase 1 research, indigenous art or local folk art, or something like that. Something that is one of the sections from your phase 1 research. That way you're consuming that page. And this is a very typical problem in design. So you really have to think about your timing and your cadence and how you're going to present things on each page. Perhaps you could take experience, make 2 pages out of experience, okay? Take key players, put it here. Take infrastructure, put it here. Take design development and move it over here onto the next page to start to introduce design development. Okay, there's another orphan/widow. Again, images are placed, you're breaking your grid. You've got some using a caption, some not. I say don't use captions. So typically this would be to fit the grid. The size of these images should all be the same, and they should be evenly spaced according to the way you've got your grid set up. Evolution and design development. Evolution, don't forget we had 3 different versions of the logo. So right now you only have the first and the last. So that typically you could go evolution, the first iteration, the second iteration, then the final decision, then take implementation and move it to the next page to start implementation just with constancy and variance. You don't need this. I would get rid of that altogether. And use this to introduce that next section. This page is very, very comfortable, very inviting. I would remove the captions and maybe increase this a little bit, and maybe increase that to fit the grid a little bit better. Whoops. Okay, but this page is very inviting because it's got limited visual stops, it's got wonderful use of negative space, and it's very, very easy to understand where the designer wants you to look and in what order. Pictogram set, much better, much better. Don't need the 2 different versions. This is a good page. Again, I'd lose the captions. Likewise. This page, this seems like it's right up against the text right there, so you might want to take a closer look at your grid, underlying grid. These are too far apart, so they don't look like they're part of the same thing. They look like 2 totally different things because the backgrounds are different. I would use the same background on the back of the ticket as the front of the ticket. Also, front of the ticket's going to need a UPC code, and that would be something that would be scanned. Remember, it would be scanned to get into the event. So this, on the other hand, would be something that would take you to a website. So the QR code and the UPC code are 2 totally different things, remember. This image right here for the truck, I would use that. Go ahead and bleed it. You could bleed it right off the page. Then just leave the plane there, call it a day. You're done. Lose the other 2 images, maybe start implementing them elsewhere. Environmental graphics, I think. I'd like to see some environmental graphics. Now that I look at it, we don't see buildings with the Olympic graphics on them, indoor arena graphics on ice rinks, etc. You've got a couple there, but I'd like to see a couple more really, really well placed images. But I got to tell you, man, the difference is remarkable. You just come so far. Okay, last page. You're going to need a credits page. This won't cut it right here. You definitely have to credit those images. You can't blanket cover all of your images. You have to credit each one individually, giving each individual artist the accolades that they so deserve. Okay, great job. Really good job. I'm super impressed. I'm so glad you took the time to go through this and really start to think about the viewer and the comfort level of the viewer. Good job, man. Any questions? Let me know. Thanks.